morning, everybody. Good morning once again. Welcome to Vision 2030 Delivery Secretariat. It's a pleasant Friday morning, and it's good to see you all. We had planned that today we'll have this discussion. We are discussing and deliberating on the issues that we have all experienced in the recent past a few weeks. The last 2 months have seen Kenya experience a lot of rain, and we are informed that this is as a result of the climate change issues that really have become something that everybody now can identify with. So with us are different stakeholders, representatives from institutions that have mandates, various mandates, and mandates that are really supposed to even spearhead and make a contribution to addressing climate change issues in terms of how should we be prepared, in terms of what exactly is it that we're experiencing, what is it that we can mitigate, and how do we then react when we have disasters happening. So we have representation from, for example, Kenya Red Cross, who have a lot of experience in terms of coming to support when issues do happen. And they will be sharing with us experiences, even what may be required to be adopted as policy directions. We have Disaster Management Authority, we have the Water Towers Institution represented, we have the Water Resources Agency Authority, we have the Ministry of Environment, we have the Ministry of Assaults, and we have many more, including the Kenya Meteorological Department. So for starters, ladies and gentlemen, I want to just welcome you here and ask that we make a small introduction. Kindly from the end, you could just mention your name and indicate where you come from. Asanteni sana na karibuni for this discussion today.
Good morning. My name is from Kenya Vision 2030.
Good morning. My name is Sharon Chukwach.
Good morning. My name is Josita Mtala, Kenya Vision 2030. Welcome all.
Kenya Vision 2030. You're welcome.
Morning. My name is Austin Nyakonde from VDS.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kevin Kiget from Kenya Water Towers Agency.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Michael Ayabe, and I'm from the Kenya Red Cross Society.
Good morning. My name is John Karoma, working in a project called Kenya Development Response to Displacement Impacts, Dr. DIP, which is domiciled in the DIP. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Amos Nyakeyo. I work with the National Drought Management Authority. It's a semi-autonomous government agency within the Ministry of East Africa, Assaults and Regional Development.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lynette Cheruiyot. I work with National Environment Management Authority. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Resa Kombi, working with the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry, State Department for Environment and Climate Change.
Morning. Faith is my name, from State Department of Environment and Climate Change.
Good morning. My name is Lilian Ajoga. I work for Kenya Wildlife Service.
Good morning. Idi Masood, Vision 2030 Delivery Secretariat.
Good morning. Judith Okech, Vision 2030 Delivery Secretariat. Karibuni.
Good morning once again. Daniel Mutegi Giti, Deputy Director Nebras, Vision 2030 Delivery Secretariat. Karibuni sana.
Good morning. I'm Joe Bradley. I work with Kenya Vision 2030 Delivery Secretariat. Thank you.
Good morning. Michael Wambua from the State Department for Asal and Regional Development.
Good morning. Sandra Nyambura, Kenya Vision 2030.
Good morning. Mary Musioki, Kenya Vision 2030.
My name is Bernard, West African Radio.
Good morning. Hilary Kabila, GBS TV Media.
Good
Good morning. Davis Karani, GBS TV Africa.
Very good. So thank you very much and most welcome to Vision 2030 once again. To start our discussions, the first row, sorry.
Good morning. Timothy Waweru, Vision 2030, Economic and Macro.
Good morning. My name is Ruben Gesa from Water Resources Authority.
Good morning. My name is Miriam Wandia from Kenya Water Towers Agency.
Good morning, and I'm Mary Kilavi from Kenya Meteorological Department.
All right. Yes. To start us off now with the discussions, thank you very much, Mary. I want to invite the panel discussants for the first panel. And we start from where we have just concluded. Mary Kilavi from the Met Department. We'll have the representative from NEMO. We'll have Mr. Amos Nyakeyo from NDMA. Please come to the front. And we'll have the representative from the Ministry of Environment. Yes, and I would want to also give an information that our Director General is joining us, so he will be part of us before the session goes. But now, with the first panel team, I would want to invite all of you to just introduce yourselves briefly, tell us what you do as an institution and how this topic about climate change adaptation, mitigation and disaster management relates with your institution. Karibuni sana. Yes, we could start from the end.
Thank you. My name is Resa Kombi, working with the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry. Basically, our core mandate is to ensure that citizens of Kenya have a clean, safe, and sustainably managed environment on our day-to-day basis. But in terms of climate change action, the ministry, of course, is mandated to ensure that we have adequate and robust policies that can be able to help us address climate change. Of course, the future impacts, preparedness. Thank you.
And I am Amos Nyakeyo. I work with the National Drought Management Authority, NDMA in terms of acronym. And NDMA exists purposely to provide leadership and coordination on drought risk management and adaptation to climate change. And this is in recognition of the drought risk as the biggest impediment to development, and especially in the ASALs of Kenya, which account for more than 80% of Kenya. It's home to nearly 40% of the population, more than 70% of Kenya's livestock wealth, more than 90% of Kenya's wildlife wealth, the greatest fraction of extractable minerals happen to be in the ASALs. And also the fact that in terms of economic development potential, I think it's the greatest opportunity in terms of where we should be looking at in terms of investing. But then drought keeps posing the greatest challenge, as every time we make progress, then drought comes in and we find ourselves backtracking. So NDMA exists purposely to provide a mechanism to manage drought risk through availing credible early warning and also translating that into actionable plans in terms of contingency plans and response plans, and also translating the risks into opportunities for investments in resilience and preparedness, and by providing coordination of diverse stakeholders in a concerted effort to manage climate risk and drought risk in those areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning once again. My name is Lynette Cheruiyot. I work with the National Environment Management Authority. NEMA. So NEMA is a state corporation under the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry. We do, our mandate is to ensure that our environment is sustainably managed, and we do that through general supervision and coordination of all matters relating to the environment. So our vision is to ensure that we have a clean, safe, healthy and sustainably managed environment. We work closely with our lead agencies, that is the ministries, the other parastatals and local, that our environment is well taken care of. So with regards to climate change, it's no longer a theory, so we have it practically. So NEMA ensures that all the developments have integrated environmental considerations so that we become climate resilient. We ensure that climate risks and vulnerability assessments are undertaken together with the environmental impact assessment or strategic environment assessment. Then, apart from that, we do enforcement of various environmental laws under the Environmental Management and Coordination Act and any other, including our Kenyan Constitution, that is especially Article 42, that obligates us to ensure that there is a clean and healthy environment. We also have other obligations under Article 69 and 79. And to add on that, we also have a function under the Climate Change Act, of course, to ensure that the emissions are adhering to the set standards. And also, currently, the Climate Change Act the regulation was gazetted, and having gazetted, we will be gazetted soon as a regulator in the carbon market. Thank you so much.
I'm Mary Kilavi from Kenya Meteorological Department. So Kenyan Meteorological Department's mandate is to provide a timely early warning on weather and climate information for safety of life, protection of property, and also conservation of the environment. So we do this by providing very critical information that will enable decision making at all levels, that is for communities, governments, and also organizations to be able to take actions to protect livelihoods and also to protect lives. We do this by providing various early information. For example, we give the seasonal forecast in anticipation of what is expected in the next season for the 3 major seasons that we have. And we do that and keep updating that with monthly forecasts, weekly forecasts, and also daily forecasts, and occasionally issue advisories like we did during this season for extreme weather when that is expected. And for climate change timescales, we provide climate change projections so as to enable planning, adaptation planning, and we also monitor the climate so that we can get a clear understanding of how the climate is changing. So we do this and also work collaboratively with several disaster management agencies so that we can co-produce the information to make it relevant for all sectors.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mary. And thank you very much, all of you, our panelists, for that expose about what your institutions do. And I want to start with where we have just stopped with Mary, so that you could tell us about your mandate is about giving us early warning and helping us to be prepared, about preparedness. In terms of our current experiences, what would you say? Have we been well prepared? And in future, how do you think improving on preparedness can help us in planning for mitigation of the climate impacts? What is your experience?
Well, at least going by what's been happening the last 2 seasons, I think the critical information went out early enough, but we still experienced a lot of impacts, which if maybe more proactive action had been taken, we probably would have minimized the kind of impacts that were experienced. So I think there's still room for improvement. And I think one of the things that probably needs to be done is to have some sort of funds set aside that can quickly be released when triggered by a focus information that shows that maybe the weather is likely to be quite extreme to a particular magnitude. So if we could do that instead of waiting until when the impacts are already felt, so that we start acting, we would save a lot of maybe lives and also livelihoods.
Very good. In fact, that is a very good point, because I do not know whether you can confirm Kenyans sometimes do not take warnings seriously, and yet I think that is the starting point, that when you're advised there's an advisory that you move to safer ground, you should actually take it, because failure to do that, then you're putting yourself at risk. So I do not know, maybe as a final comment you can mention something about the attitude of Kenyans, and maybe we need an attitudinal change before we go to Lynette.
I think you're right. Though it seems like sometimes that comes with experience. We've had, nations where people have suffered extremes. They've learned to actually take action way in advance once warnings are given. So I think we need to start to change that culture, and I hope not to learn the hard way. We'd better take that up early enough so that we don't experience as much suffering as we did last time. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I want to now move to Lynette and Ressa. I want you to comment on the same issue and just, in fact, tell us, we have seen a lot of awakening in terms of mitigating climate change impacts. We now have the presidential directive of planting 15 billion trees in 10 years. And have we done an analysis or forecast how bad or how risky is the future if we do not take the necessary action? Have you done analysis of such sort, and how then can we be prepared in terms of our mitigation? Yes.
Basically, when the ministry embarks on policy development, it's informed by science, right? So in terms of forecasting or projecting future risks and impacts, it's cascaded down to the global scale, to the national, regional and national level. So as a country, we take note of that. We're informed by the science from the IBCC through the Kenya Meteorological Department. We work hand in hand with them, making sure that they scale down the information. And using that information, we use that to generate interventions, how we can be able to adapt the impacts of climate change and also mitigate the sources of greenhouse gas emissions. So in terms of knowing how to do it, yes, we do it well, but now the challenge comes in terms of now implementing those interventions we came up with informed by science, and also keeping track of the implementation period to ensure that we actually succeeded with the plan that we put in place. So all that is informed by science, and we do that very, very well with the help of Kenya Meteorological Department. Thank you.
Very good. So Lynette, you could add to that line and maybe also mention about what has been the experience about monitoring and tracking from a NEMA perspective, because you collaborate.
Yes, sure, thank you. From where she stopped is that actually we have very good laws to guide our activities. It's only on the implementation, and not only implementation, and adhering from those who are supposed to do. If we look keenly on how these floods really affects us, we can see that majority of the people who are affected were those who are either living in the water courses or at the riparian reserve. Yet we have laws indicating clearly that we are not supposed to occupy these reserves. That is at a minimum of 6 meters from the highest water mark to a maximum land of 30 meters from the highest water mark. So if we could only adhere to these, the laws which are there, then we will have avoided most of these impacts from the climate change. Thank you.
I can see Mary wants to intercept. Yes, just go ahead. Yeah.
Bearing in mind what the future actually shows, according to the projections, that we expect much more frequent and intense extreme events. It's in terms of more prolonged droughts and even much heavier rainfall. And as it is, we are beginning to see that happening because from the analysis that we've done so far for this current season, and it's not yet over yet, given that we still have a few more days. Nairobi so far has received the highest amount of rainfall ever. And 2023 has been the warmest year ever on record. So it looks like we are in what the climate scientists are calling an unknown territory. We really do not know exactly what's going to happen. The impacts are likely to be much more than maybe what the models have been projecting. And that means that the nations have to be really ready for what is likely to happen in the future in terms of implementing policies that will help in resilience building.
Okay, very well. And when you speak that we should brace ourselves for tougher times, you're saying we are going to experience more extreme weather, more heat, more rain, more La Nina. You're saying seasons are changing. I want to now invite Mr. Nyakeo to just rope in the information and the discussion and maybe just tell us, efforts yielding, or what exactly do we need to do differently?
Yeah, thank you very much. Indeed, we can say we are on the right track, and there is evidence to that effect. The forecasts from Kenya Met are very accurate. Long gone are the days of nowadays it's like they look out the window and they see the rain and they tell us. It is so accurate. And from where we sit at National Drought Management Authority, we pay close attention to the forecasts that come from KMD, and especially the seasonal forecasts for the long rains, March, April, May, and the short rains, October, November, December. We use those to build drought scenarios around which then we are able to issue drought advisories. And these drought advisories are meant to inform people of what they must do. An advisory is actually a pointer to actions that we must pick, either as the general public or the different stakeholders that have an interest in drought risk management and adaptation to climate change. But then you see, taking up an advisory and applying it's another matter altogether. We may not have control on that, but the advisories are issued, and we still see in the face of impending drought, people are clinging to their livestock. They don't want to offtake, and then when the drought is biting, you see livestock die. Basically, wealth is being wiped out because of inaction by the wealth owners. And then also, when you look at how much we've invested in mechanisms to mitigate the worst impacts of climate disasters, droughts, floods, and so on, the bigger the magnitude that we see during crisis, the bigger the gap there is at resilience level. Time you are seeing us in crisis in drought and in crisis in flooding or these other associated climate-related events, it tells you how much we must invest so that we are able to minimize the impacts of those events when they occur. And for a fact, we've moved some distance in that direction, but the gap that we still to address is still so big And that is where we need to focus a lot. And it is not the responsibility of, say, like NDMA to do investments in that. Every sector, every State Department that is susceptible to drought impacts should be able to mainstream their plans in a way that you have drought resilience, drought preparedness, climate resilience, climate preparedness in the work plans, so that we are not looking for resources that would be set aside somewhere so that we'll be rushing to, but we will be having them already mainstreamed into the work plans and budgets. That way, then we have a better opportunity to invest in those projects that are likely to bear greatest fruit. Some calculations say that you lose close to $10 every time you fail to invest $1 in resilience building. So then, if we have $9 that are going to waste, why don't we first of all commit this to resilience building so that we have a smaller burden when it comes to the crisis? So those are the issues that we need really to pay attention to as a country, and all stakeholders, government and state, so that we put these efforts in a manner that they are able to bear the biggest benefit to the nation. Thank you.
Very well. Before you keep the mic off, I think I appreciate that you have also identified the issue that requires resourcing, that it's high time that we need to finance climate mitigation because it's real. And I think you brought it out very well, that wealth is being wiped out by failure of action. But while you are still at it, because I know we have a representative from the Net Fund who will be able to respond to whether we are financing appropriately and whether our projections will be able to match up, or whether we need to maybe get new modalities and studies of identifying. Maybe you could tell us what are the key successes that we have experienced through drought management. Are we likely to be a food secure nation, or what percentage of our population is still food insecure?
Okay, thank you very much. Food security is much broader than the drought risk aspects. But then we must appreciate that with the efforts that the country has put in, the mechanisms that have been established, when you compare the drought of 2021, 2023, when we had 5 failed rain seasons, you compare that with the preceding big drought of 2009, 2011. At the same stage of drought, in this recent one, we had half the people that were food insecure when you compare the numbers that we had seen in 2009, 2011 at the same stage, meaning that whatever mechanisms had been put in place had guaranteed food security for a higher number. Bear in mind that we are speaking against a context of an increased population, because a 10-year span, you expect an increased population. So if we were to sustain the level of operation of 2009, 2011, then we would be having nearly double the people that would be food insecure. But in contrast, at the same stage of the drought, we were having a lower number of people that were food insecure. Then look at the livestock losses that we encountered. I think for those that were around in 2009, 2011, you must have seen livestock being transported to a river and they were dying outside KMC. And that was not the worst drought in a long time. This last one, 2021, 2023, was the worst in 40 years. So it was bigger than the 2009, 2011 drought. Did we see those scenarios of livestock dying?
No.
No.
Why?
Meaning something had been done. So there is evidence that, yes, we are making progress. We are not yet there. We still have a long way to go. There is a lot we need to invest in. Drought is about lack of water. Drought is about lack of livestock pasture. Drought is about lack of water for crop production. Then we need to address ourselves to those issues that will solve problems around food production, livestock and crops. and then access to safe water for populations and livestock. So it's about accessing water for domestic and productive use, and that calls for investment in a massive scale. Compare our country to other countries that are worse off in terms of precipitation. Israel keeps coming up, isn't it? Which part of this country is drier than Israel? None. But then, have you ever had drought in Israel? So it means there is something they are doing right, and maybe that is what we need to borrow from. There are several other countries that can be cited as examples. And all we need to do is to harness the right technology, deploy it appropriately, and then ensure that we are able to support production, we are able to support investments. Again, we need to look at livelihoods outside the rain-fed economy, because the more we rely on the rain-fed economy, the more we have limited options. So we need really to open our minds and look at what is it that we need to exploit outside the rain-fed economy, and even in those arid and semi-arid regions that have huge potential for other things other than food and livestock production.
Very good. Thank you very much for that very informative discussion. We'll come back to Resa, and would want Resa to inform us shortly after I conclude. What are we doing differently now that we are told that none of our most arid lands is as bad as Israel? And recent data shows that 89% of our land is actually either arid or semi-arid. And the current climatic changes, the floods and the prolonged droughts are likely to take our land if by the time our efforts on tree planting are actually beneficial, we may have lost some good ground. Is there a possibility for us to do things differently, mitigate, still ensure that our environment in its current state is able to even give us new food and new numbers so that we can mitigate? I want you to be thinking about that as I give a chance to Mr. Muli to introduce himself. And welcome to the panel.
Thank you very much. First of all, my name is Peter Muli. I work with the Tana and the River Development Authority, and I'm delighted to be here in this panel. First, I'm sorry for having had come a bit late, but all the same, I'm happy to join these discussions. Thank you.
Very well. And you will get ready after Resa. You will tell us whether Tarda itself was prepared, that despite the warnings by the Kenya Meteorological Department, had they foreseen a situation where the dams will spill? And exactly what are you doing also about the Tana Delta, the Tana River community, who appear to be the ones who bear the brunt of all the floods that we experience in this country? So back to you, Resa.
Thank you very much for the question. I would like us to take us back to our responsibility as at least a developing country globally. We are basically emitting 0.01 metric tons of CO2 equivalent, which is very minimal compared to what other countries are emitting, that is the developed countries. But when you look at the impacts you're facing, they are way beyond our responsibility towards emissions to the atmosphere. So we are currently being faced to reduce our emissions, but also adapt to the impacts of climate change, which is indeed challenging, that you have to divert our efforts, right, towards now trying to run towards the events that we're facing. But you also have other responsibility of making sure that we reduce our emissions. That being taken care of, as a country, I think when I look back to the forest cover, way back, I'll say during the Moi era, or way before him, we had a very good tree cover, and then things dwindled down, and at some point we were doing very badly. But if you look at the political goodwill in terms of making sure that we increase our forest cover, I think from our constitution we do say that we aim to achieve 10%, but we've seen that being risen slowly by the political leadership, and now we are at 32% forest cover, and that being backed up by the 15 billion tree program, that we need to enhance our forest cover. And we've seen a shift in terms of the approach on how we're planting it, and how, with the support of KEFRI and KFS, in terms of advising what kind of species and location to plant them. And I believe that's what's being done in terms of tree distribution when these particular programs are being, of course, a clarion call from His Excellency to make sure that we plant trees, and of course the goodwill of putting it as a national holiday to make sure that we plant trees. So I think we've seen a shift. It's really urgent that we shift towards that, and we've seen also the adoption of fruit trees being distributed, especially in schools and also in areas where the community do the agricultural activities, and also the promotion of agroforestry, whereby as you plant trees, making sure that you also have somewhere to plant your crops, and also the fruit trees, so that we balance, not just planting trees and just seeing them, but also you benefit from the trees you're planting. So I do say that there's a shift, and I hope it will be sustainable, that even as we transition to the next government, this is not done away with, or we don't undo the effort we've already done. And this also requires, I'll say, capacity building and awareness to the citizens. Through the science, we need to break the jargons of the science. We just need to explain to the citizens that this is what we're going through, and this is what the government is trying to how the government is trying to intervene in terms of interventions, and we need to take part, regardless of whether you're being affected or not, because our children will benefit from what we're doing now, given that the impacts are going to be very, very much severe in the next coming years. So let's take action. Let's support the government in terms of the intervention they're able to do now with the little finance that they're able to do as we move forward. Things will get better, but we need to stay on that track.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I have a reaction following the emissions. You state that we have 0.01 emissions, which then implies that we are reducing, we are contributing to degradation in a very small way, but we are suffering in a very large way. And probably as we come back to the next round, you might want to tell us what opportunities are there. In fact, in terms of carbon trading, how much should we know? How can I, myself, even from a bottom-up economic approach, how can I benefit from carbon trading? And how do I relate with this topic? Maybe you'll help us. You said that we need to demystify the jargon, and we also need to get it clear. What is carbon trading, and what opportunity do we have as a country, and do we also have opportunities as individuals? Mr. Muli?
Okay. We are Charda. We are the owners of the two biggest dams in the Seven Forks. We have Masinga and we have Kiambere, which currently is the last dam within the Seven Forks. Issues of the floods, Masinga Dam is made to store water to release for generation in the other 4 dams downstream. It is the biggest in the cascade of the Seven Forks, and basically it is meant also, apart from electricity generation and water storage, also to control floods in the downstream, basically in Tana River. So have a big rice scheme in Tana River, and sometimes based on the magnitude of floods, we also become negatively impacted. However, when we experience, we get advice from the meteorology department, we also communicate to the public, and we release a press statement notifying the people downstream that we are about to release We are expecting much flood, much water in the dams, and once the dams are full, we're going to release them so that the water can now flow downstream. When this water flows downstream, it brings a negative aspects. One, to the community living downstream, especially Tana River. You find that Tana River is a wetland, and most people farm within the wetland when it is dry. But this time, when the water comes and it destroys their livestock, I mean their food crops, and by so doing, you find at the end of the floods, people experience famine, diseases that comes with the floodings. You find that when it comes to fields, the toilets, and that eco matter floats within the water, and the same water is the same that community downstream consume for domestic use. You find that now waterborne related diseases comes and affect the community downstream. And basically, the government of Kenya is coming up now to building the last dam, which is now High Grande Fall, which again will come and control the rate of floods and release the normal water flow that will now continue flowing. However, that is not yet done, but is in the planning stage, waiting for funding to construct that. We normally also advise the people living within the riparians of the Tana River, giving them notice that water is coming. Now, if they have any crops or investment within the riparian, actually is an encroachment, they should be prepared to come out because water is coming in their farmland. Basically, that's what we do. And when I would say that when it comes now to infrastructure, as pertains now to roads infrastructure, we have the floods coming out of the Tana River, now destroying or cutting off the roads, linking the economic transaction within the roads. For example, you find we have the road connecting Tana River and Lamu, and in these floods, it was cut off, now disconnecting that economic transaction within the two counties. And what we would also recommend as an institution that we have actually bigger culverts, which will now allow water, the excess water, because you'll find when the floods are coming in, you find the water, the roads have no capacity to let it go to the lower part of it. So when we increase our culverts to accommodate more and reduce pressure to the floods water, then we'll have our roads being safe. You'll find also during the dry period, when we experience dry period after floods, like the one that we are having now, we expect now when the drought will come, we'll have movement of livestock coming from Marsabit, Moyale, Garissa, coming down to Tana River, where we have pastures for their livestock to come and feed. And you'll find the same place that we have that wetland is also the same place where we have the Pokomo people also farming in that wetland. And at the same time, it's the same place where now the pastoralists will come down and feed their cattle. You find out that brings now resource conflict within the Tana Delta. So basically on this one, we'll recommend that we have communication to the community living in the North Horn and the Tana Delta, even if we communicate them the local dialect to prepare that this drought is coming, can we reduce our number of livestock instead of losing them during the dry period? Can we also make maximum use of our wetland in the Tana Delta so that we can now reduce the rate of resource conflict? Again, the government should come out with the mechanism of preparing the North Horn with the structure that will harvest water during the dry period. As in, you find during the dry period, the rate of evaporation is quite very high. And we come and construct open water pan and check dams in the Northern Horn. But when it comes now to dry period, the water again goes to the atmosphere through evaporations. If we could come with now mechanism of constructing structures which are closed, in the northern hall so that we can reduce the rate of evaporation. And also we start now this nature-based solutions whereby we come up with now wood lots. We establish nurseries in the wood lots. In a way, we'll now be addressing the problem of cattle rustlers movement and also domesticate economic activities within that particular area. And now because the climate change is another issue which now really negatively affects the pastoralists, will now be providing an alternative livelihood so that even as we address the issue of climate change, the pastoralists will have an alternative kind of livelihood and they can survive even as they reduce their livestock. Thank you.
Very good. Yep. Excellent. That is information. I think that is very important. Probably we should enhance sharing of information because it sounds phenomenal. It sounds that it's actually going to change. And even